Back of the line, Bianca. Charlotte Flair has returned to take her place as maybe the next WWE Women's Undisputed Champion. We're going to talk about Belair, where she's going to fall in this run-in, and a lot more stuff in today's episode of WrstlXtra. Stay tuned.
Yo, this is WrstlXtra. I'm your boy A Dazzle, always joined by my trios team, Mex, the WrestleManiac, and of course, Gerard Bonner, the Professor. Wow, Mex did not hesitate, did not hold back at all. I mean, to be fair, it seems as though Bianca is no longer Belair to the throne of this women's championship run or race to Asuka's new WWE Women's World Championship. I'm a little confused actually. Like, which one is it? Like, Asuka's got the WWE Women's
She's got the WWE's right, and then Rhea has the Women's World Championship.
WWE Women's Championship. WWE Women's World Champ. What?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, we've just had the presentations as well for these two new championships. Literally just a carbon copy of the men's championships, but with a white strap. First of all, Gerard, what do you think? What are you making of the new look for these championships? And obviously we already talked about wanting to see non-branded, as in Raw and SmackDown championships. Is this a great move? What do you think about the look of the championships?
In terms of the look of the championships, I must admit, when the Universal title was unveiled, I was a wee bit underwhelmed. When the Women's Championship for Asuka was released and revealed, I was also initially underwhelmed. I think every time I see a championship title reveal, I expect a new design that's going to knock my socks off. Right. So I didn't get that with either of those. Strangely enough, that actually helped me in preparation for what Rhea would receive.
Yes.
With that said, and this is going to sound really strange. So no, I did not like the design or reveal for Roman or for Asuka, but something happened when Asuka put it on. When Asuka put it on, it suddenly looked amazing. Right. Something about that. I don't like the gold inlay, especially on the black strap, but on the white strap, it looks special. It looks right. It looks regal. It looks great. So I loved it for Asuka. For Rhea, good Lord. That thing on Rhea is unreal because the design is so cool and it's so different that I loved it. And I think because I see some people, are mad because why does it look like the men's? I think you have to do this to have parity and levity between the men and the women. You cannot call, and think about this, all this time, we've called it a world championship, a WWE championship, a universal championship, but for the women, it was always brand specific, which doesn't make it feel like a world title. So in this one giant move, they've got new belts, new names, and we have some levity and parity between both the men and the women who can now officially call themselves world champions. So I like it.
Max, what are you thinking about this new reveal? Did it overwhelm? Was it underwhelming? How did you feel?
I think it's exactly what we've been expecting in terms of this is how they're going to differentiate these two titles. So, I think the one thing I didn't like, which I picked up on today when I watched Raw, was they had Triple H out here doing the men and Adam Pearce doing the women. Like, they make Triple H do the women as well. You see what I mean? Like, it's a minor thing, but I guess it does show as well, like, where they kind of rank these things, especially like Gerard was just saying, you're trying to kind of form parity from how we see the belts, but you're getting like the second GM to hand this one over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not really cool. Design wise, I'm cool with them both. Rhea's one looks spot on, looks excellent. But yeah, I keep calling it in my head. It's like the fried WWE Championship, the grilled WWE Championship. WWE Championship on the barbecue, like, and this is what we have now. But it's whatever. So, but yeah, I'm cool with it. I'm happy. The whole title palaver seems to be all sorted now.
Yeah. That is actually a great relief in terms of, again, not having to be bothered with the brands and where they're going to be, and if there is another draft in next year or later in this year possibly, or whatever else, at least then we're not dealing with this weird 6 or 8 weeks that we've just had with Raw Women's Champion on SmackDown, SmackDown Women's Champion on Raw, and blah 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 blah. Obviously, we're also seeing as well, there's going to be a unification of the Tag Team Championship, or the Women's Tag Team Championships, with the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships and the NXT Women's Championship. Before people some people are getting their hopes up and asking the question, what are these titles going to look like? Listen, nothing's changing. The same ones that Ronda and Shayna are holding are going to be the titles, and that's the end of it. I'm not expecting anything else at all. So that's that. I mean, going back to, of course, SmackDown and the reveal, a new championship reveal, women's championship reveal would be nothing without Charlotte Flair. When you talk about WWE Women's Championships, you cannot leave Charlotte Flair out of the conversation. Well, the sentence, let alone the conversation. So in true Charlotte Flair fashion, Charlotte Flair returned after first time since WrestleMania, since losing to Rhea Ripley. And of course, challenges straight for Asuka. Doesn't care about no line. She is the line. I love that line. And has challenged Asuka. Only moments before, Adam Pearce promised Bianca Belair a rematch for Asuka's championship. Now, the question is, how is this one going to work? Mex, when you saw Charlotte come out, I'm sure everyone else knew exactly what was about to go down. But what are you making of this now triangle of Asuka, Charlotte Flair, and Bianca Belair? What's the situation?
It's very interesting, especially since they've put the caveat in there just before this segment that Bianca was gonna be next up. Bianca was gonna get her chance, and then Asuka's just taken on this new championship, and then music hits Charlotte Flair. And when Charlotte Flair comes, you literally know she's inserting herself into the program, into the title picture, into whatever it is, because that's how she goes. She, like she said, she is the line, like you up and that kind of stuff. So good to see her back. Another talent that is, I can't remember Charlotte Flair even drafted. I was trying to remember this. Or was she not?
I think
she was.
I think it was SmackDown.
Yeah, I believe it was SmackDown.
It was, because we talked about Bianca and Charlotte being on the same brand.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think that's all good. What I really liked was the through line, and Adam Pearce was like an excitable kid that Charlotte's come back, she wants to face Asuka, blah blah blah, getting excited, and obviously they just panned over and Bianca was right behind him. And maybe this is me being hopeful. We saw a bit of sassy attitude coming, and I was like, okay, cool. Like, this is what could kind of instigate this maybe turn or change in attitude. If she loses to Charlotte, loses her place in the queue to Charlotte, maybe her and Charlotte go for a match and the winner goes for Asuka. These are the kind of things that can help to instigate a change. So, I was all for this segment. Very kind of simple, straightforward segment. It's repetitive in the sense that Charlotte's back and Charlotte's going for the title again. But, there's a few other stories and things that can come from this. So I'm hopeful.
So we've been told, I believe, if I'm not wrong, that Charlotte is actually facing Asuka next week or in 2 weeks.
The night before Money in the Bank.
The night before, so that's in 3 weeks there.
Yes.
Gerard, what are you seeing leading up to this? Are we going to get a bump in the road with Bianca involved, or do we see something evolve to then happen at Money in the Bank?
Well, firstly, I will say that in terms of repetitive, I was actually surprised, because when I saw her come out, I feared that she was going to get the match that night. That's what happened the same
Usually.
time when she came back before
Mhm.
and came back and beat Ronda and sent Ronda packing, and there we went. So I'm glad that at least it wasn't that night. With that said, I'm actually very surprised that this match ends up on SmackDown and not on the pay-per-view, considering the pay-per-view is the next night, which says to me something is up, right? I don't know what the something is, but something is up. And personally, I'd like to see this where Asuka actually beats Charlotte. I think we've all assumed, everybody in the community has assumed that automatically this means Charlotte wins. But I think Asuka is very much due a win over Charlotte. I still feel it for Asuka going back to WrestleMania 34 when her streak should have never been broken by Charlotte, but it was. And honestly, it sent Asuka on a downwards tailspin that she's technically never recovered from. We've never seen the dominant Asuka that we saw at NXT that won the Royal Rumble. So I hope this turns into, Asuka retaining, even if it's at the hands of Bianca Belair. And if Bianca helps to foster this to ensure her opportunity, I think the winner in all of this ends up being Bianca, because we already saw the seeds planted Friday night from her outfit to the way she was talking. Everything said, oh, a change has come. And I think Bianca ends up winning out in all of this Money in the Bank weekend, one way or another.
With Mex being hopeful, with Gerard talking about something's up, it came to my mind. Mex disappeared. It came to my mind that there's a possibility for me in my head that we get to SmackDown the night before Money in the Bank, and the match actually doesn't happen.
That's possible too.
I believe there's a possibility that Bianca attacks Charlotte, and it's either the match doesn't happen at all or it's a no contest, and then we get a triple threat at Money in the Bank. That for me would be the perfect way to do this.
Yeah, unless they're saving the triple threat for SummerSlam, which would be the next big event happening in the following month. And that would certainly be worthy of the three of them in the ring together.
That might actually be better, because I'm then thinking as well, because in my mind, the big one-on-one SummerSlam match would be Bianca and Charlotte. It would then be upsetting for Asuka to lose that championship so quickly.
Right.
So I guess that would definitely then be the ideal situation in terms of all three of them being involved. It also then saves us a little bit more time before we get that one-on-one with Bianca and Charlotte, because we do know that the only thing that Bianca is waiting for right now, apart from winning another championship, is to beat Charlotte Flair, and complete the defeating of the four horsewomen, of the day. Do you see in any way where Bianca kind of just is out of the picture altogether, and in some way for some time she's just not in the championship run?
I don't know that I see her out of the picture. I see the picture obviously being convoluted, because the other piece that happens in here is the Money in the Bank winner, whoever that might be. And who knows if she kind of goes on a tirade and decides to pull a Brock Lesnar and get herself inserted into the Money in the Bank match late. I don't know. That would be interesting, because her carrying around the Money in the Bank briefcase and terrorizing people potentially makes for a very dangerous scenario for Bianca Belair. So there are lots of ways that they could pull this off. The other thing is, I don't know the direction, but I'm imagining that we will hopefully land at Bianca versus Charlotte if they can push it to even Mania, because that is a Mania match. The road there gets very interesting. I think as creatively as they've been able to create a road for Cody Rhodes to stay away from the title picture, they could potentially do something like that for Bianca. Against who would be the question. And I'm not sure the answer of that yet, but I think because there are so many possibilities here for Bianca, that this gets very interesting because we like when it's not terribly obvious.
Right. Speaking of Money in the Bank, let's turn our attentions to Money in the Bank itself, and more specifically, the men's Money in the Bank. Gerard, can you remind me of, like, so far who has qualified for the men's Money in the Bank ladder
So
match?
let's see. For the men's Money in the Bank, we've got, and I actually knew this by heart for a second, but I know for a fact we've got Ricochet, Shinsuke Nakamura, we've got LA Knight, we've got Santos Escobar. Last night we saw Damian Priest qualify, and there is a sixth name that I am forgetting, but I believe they've capped it at 6 this year.
Is it Pete Dunne?
Pete Dunne, yes,
Butch.
aka Butch. So those are the 6 that are in this Money in the Bank, which I think any of them, in theory, would make great Money in the Bank winners potentially. But yeah, those 6 are the ones in the men's match.
With those 6 names.
Mhm.
My question is, does this feel as though it is almost like a mid-card Money in the Bank? Do you actually see one of these guys cashing in on the current champions now and then becoming, quote unquote, the face of the company?
Well, see, that's the thing, right? Because they've silently changed the rules of Money in the Bank and they very randomly mentioned it. And, I'm paying attention to everything.
Right.
So the new rule now is that you can cash in on any champion. On any brand, which is one of the reasons why Carmelo Hayes was at SmackDown Friday, which I thought this is kind of brilliant. Yep. So in light of that, that makes this even more interesting, honestly, because you look at all 6 of those guys, I could legitimately see going after a world championship. Okay. I could equally see them going after the Intercontinental Championship with Gunther, going after the U.S. Championship with Austin Theory. Certainly, if they decided to go after the North American Championship with Wes Lee, like I could totally see that, or the NXT Championship, I could see that as well. And you could even make the argument, I wonder if that opens up the tag team titles potentially if they can find a partner. So this gets, I think, even more interesting than just looking at who could become the next world champion, because now it puts all of the champions on edge. And I like the fact that any of those 6 guys who are kind of, when you add Damian Priest to the mix, who now is who just had a world title shot last week, I mean, you're definitely looking at world title potential with this, with all 6 guys, honestly, whether you have Butch or you have Santos Escobar, who I think is long overdue. People have wanted some sort of shot for LA Knight. Shinsuke has needed some kind of maneuver like this. Ricochet as well. So all of them, and I think what helps too is when you have lengthy title reigns like what we've seen with Gunther in the Intercontinental Championship, that's become a lot more prestigious. Austin Theory in the U.S. title. I mean, Jey Uso just fought for that last week. So
right.
All of those titles are now deemed pretty prestigious. So I think this puts a great moment on the Money in the Bank, and it makes it even more important.
So as we were saying, the rules are open. I guess it kind of happened almost indirectly or almost out of nowhere, really, when Austin Theory tried to cash in on I think it was Seth Rollins at the time, who was US champion.
Yes.
And obviously was unsuccessful, but obviously later on went on to win it. So now they're not hiding the fact that the Money in the Bank can be cashed in on any champion, on any brand, as you mentioned, as you said as well. We saw Carmelo Hayes while Baron Corbin was facing Mustafa Ali, and it was mentioned with both Mustafa and Baron Corbin that they were on NXT. Maybe Mustafa Ali might go for the North American, while Baron Corbin may cash in on the NXT. Now we know that that's not going to happen with those 2 specifically because with Baron Corbin at least specifically because he didn't qualify. And as you said, it opens up this conundrum of possibilities in terms of booking, in terms of title reigns, how they end. Gunther's on a lengthy run. How do we actually end that? Money in the Bank winner would kind of make a bit of sense. But do you think in any way, as brilliant as the opportunities and the possibilities are, do you think that it, in a way, could possibly diminish the prestigiousness of the Money in the Bank ladder match? Because we're now, I'm now thinking, what happens if one of them like just cashes in on the Intercontinental Champion? It doesn't feel the same as the anticipation that we had for when Seth Rollins came running down at WrestleMania, when Edge cashed in, when Dolph Ziggler cashed in on Alberto Del Rio.
Yeah.
Do you think it changes that? Do you think it hinders it in some way?
I don't, because again, they get to pick their title. So they could very well decide to pick a moment to go after the world championship on either brand, which I think would be very interesting. I think it puts everybody on high alert. And so the idea, I think when we didn't know that they could do that, it made Austin Theory cashing in for the US title look really crazy.
Yes.
Now that we know, and you've got Gunther with a long reign, you've got, Austin Theory with a long reign, and seemingly nobody can beat either of them. Somebody now cashing in on that feels completely different than the automatic expectation that it's supposed to be for a world championship. So I think because they've at least announced that there's a change without saying that there's a change, puts and we've seen, Gunther threatening people like, if you think you're going to cash this in on me, you're not. So that opens it up to us actually believing like, whoa, and I'm sure at some point somebody's going to feign a cash in, and give you that illusion. And that's going to be exciting too, because again, those moments are great moments.
So I love the possibilities, as I said. And, as you say, it opens up so many possibilities. It opens up so many avenues. It makes your Intercontinental, your US Championship a little more prestigious and, and stuff like that. Do you think then, even with all of these people as well, like a Butch, for example, possibly Ricochet, one or two others, that also gives us a almost like a light at the tunnel that would then could possibly be building new stars? Because if then an LA Knight cashes in on Roman Reigns, you know what I mean? If Shinsuke cashes in on Roman Reigns, if someone cashes in on Seth Rollins, blah blah blah, like there's that possibility too. Do you think that could be a thing as well, where we're trying to build stars in this way?
Totally. It really puts me in the mindset of the year that Big E won the Money in the Bank cash in. I think that is what the design of Money in the Bank is supposed to be at this point. Think about what it did for Liv Morgan and, what it's done for several others. So just looking at the field this year on both the men and the women's sides, it looks like we've got the possibility to actually build some stars and create some opportunities. I mean, it did this for Bayley several years ago. It's done it for several others. So I mean, the Miz became really the Miz because of the cash in, so I think there's enough of a history that will make this interesting. And speaking of that, I think also I'm paying attention to how many times they mention certain stats as well. It makes me think that perhaps the men's one could be successful and the women's one might not, which is interesting. But this is the other challenge with that too. And I just thought about it. So on the men's side, obviously they could challenge now for the US or the Intercontinental, but on the women's side, you really still only have 3 championships to get, if you count the NXT title as well. So, so that's interesting too. And I don't know if they need to then create a secondary title or what. That's probably going too far down the rabbit hole. But to answer the question, I think it gives the opportunity for stars to be created on both sides, and I like that.
Yeah. As I said, I'm here for possibilities. I'm always about the possibilities when it comes to wrestling, and not knowing how things are going to go. And that's the best part of wrestling for me, is just the not knowing, it not being obvious, it not being right. This guy's going to win and going to beat that person on this day at this pay-per-view. Right. Whatever happens. Let's see what they do. speaking of all this great stuff, we move our attentions a little bit to Impact. Impact Wrestling. We don't talk about Impact Wrestling enough on here, but we have an opportunity right now to talk about Impact Wrestling. I'm going to first go to Against All Odds happened this past week on Thursday, I believe it was, or Friday. I think
Friday.
it was
On
Friday. And we saw Trinity take on, I think it was Giselle Shaw and
Savannah Evans in a
and
tag
Savannah
match.
Evans in a tag match alongside, obviously, the Impact Knockouts champion Deonna Purrazzo. What did you make of seeing Trinity team up with the person she will inevitably face for the Impact Knockouts championship Against All Odds?
Here's the funny thing. When I watched that match, I immediately thought of you both.
Oh, wow.
I totally did. And I'll tell you why. Because, again, I think the idea that they have is when you have a champion and challenger teaming up with each other, that they're supposed to create some degree of tension.
Yes.
And in this match, there was no tension at all. I mean, even the end of it, they win the match and they do this stare down. And then, Trinity's like, "Oh, come here, girl." And they hug each other. "Oh, girl. Come on, girl." And I'm like, this is the woman you're going to fight for the world championship. And y'all are like Kane and Daniel Bryan hugging it out. Like, what are we doing right now? So there's a part of me that, for all the conversation we had about Bianca Belair and things like that, I think Trinity needs a degree of an edge right now. Somewhat of a chip on her shoulder. Listen, you just spent a year of your life out of this business because you didn't like how the WWE was treating you. You've come over here for a world championship. Like, put some fire in your belly. Like, don't just be, if you're just happy to be here, then don't get in the world title picture yet. You got to have some fire. You got to prove, like, listen, I belong here. I am the star. I'm the show. I'm Trinity. I'm coming for the title. I'm not playing games with you. I feel like Deonna has much more of an edge. Deonna's being really respectful, but we know she can, like, flip it at the drop of a dime. And we don't have that fire from Trinity yet. We need that fire because Slammiversary, Deonna's not trying to go in and lay down just to be happy to be in the ring with Trinity.
Right.
That's not going to be the case. So I'm going to need a wee bit more tension from Trinity on the road to this championship match. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was a great match. I thought it was a great opportunity for them to showcase themselves. And what I do like about Trinity and Impact is we really are getting to see her showcased more as a wrestler.
Yes. Yes, definitely.
And she's, her skills are out there. She's giving us some great matches. We're not always getting the same endings, to matches. We're getting submission moves now, which is like, wow. That is a big, big deal for Trinity. So I'm excited about that. I just want her to find her fire in the next couple of weeks so that we can, really get behind this. Other than that, it's going to be two nice girls. We're just going to see who the best competitor is. And, may the best woman win. This is wrestling, okay? Like, give us some edge. Give us some fire. Give us some spark. That's what I think.
I think for me, we've seen the whole competitive, I want to take on the best and you're the best, so let's go for it. And we've seen it in Impact. I think the most recent one was probably Mike Bailey and
Jonathan Gresham.
Jonathan Gresham, even those two, we've seen it. But I think for me, what's weird about this one is the fact that it's Deonna Purrazzo.
Right.
It's that's how that. If it was Mickie James, it would make sense, and I think I would expect it. I don't think I'd be saying half the things I'm saying now, or have the feeling that I have now. Right. Plus, on top of that, not just Deonna Purrazzo being Deonna Purrazzo and how she's been in Impact since she's become champion and all that kind of stuff, and the virtuoso and all that stuff. It's also their first interaction.
Right.
Where they came at each other verbally.
Right.
But yet now that we're at the in crunch time.
Yeah.
It's we're good friends. What? I think that's what it is. It's more so their first meet up. It's Deonna Purrazzo, and then we're now here, which are like two complete other ends of the spectrum. And it's not like Trinity saved her from someone else as she did with Jordan Grace.
Right.
So yeah, I'm struggling to kind of feel an excitement for the match, or just any kind of enthusiasm for the match and how it's going to go, or the lead up to it. I'm like, someone's got to do something somewhere.
Yeah. And it's funny because I had forgotten about that initial meeting between them where they threw some verbal jabs. It was edgy, and it was like, okay,
it was personal.
It was really personal. I was like, I'm here for this. And it's scary how they've made us forget that fast. It wasn't that long ago. So yeah, this is interesting. I wonder if this is Deonna kind of luring in Trinity and just kind of being nice before she kind of drops the bomb on her.
I'm hoping and this is the thing, that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that out of nowhere, Deonna then just switches on it. We've got a good few weeks until Slammiversary. It can happen. How we get there, it's not impossible. Again, all the things that we're saying, that we've already said, it can just change in in one show. It can completely change in one show. But it's just difficult to watch at the moment because even that doesn't make sense. And I'm just like, what's going on? But keeping things with Impact. And we turn our attentions to a man that we do not talk about anywhere near enough on this show. He has been doing great things in Impact Wrestling, and that is the now, unfortunately, former X Division champion, Trey Miguel. Trey Miguel took on Chris Sabin, who is a record holder when it comes to the X Division Championship, and now 9-time X Division champion, which is a record in Impact Wrestling, and also is most days combined as the X Division champion as well. Gerard, did you manage to see the match? What did you make of the match, first of all?
I did see the match, and it was really incredible. Like, it just, that whole pay-per-view was incredible. That really match was special. And it was like, if you were new to the Impact product, that's probably a match that you want to see to introduce you to the product.
For sure.
Because it embodies historically what the X Division has been all about. Trey Miguel, even though he had to face the title or whatever, he gets it done in the ring. Always does. And I mean, they went for it in this match. And it took a lot for Sabin to get the win. But congratulations to Sabin. But you're right. I think Trey Miguel doesn't get enough credit for what he has accomplished as an X Division champion.
Definitely.
Again, he's kind of the other side of the coin when it comes to like Wes Lee, all the time they spent together in the Rascals, and yet they each turned around and have proven to be great singles competitors. The idea that they both were holding major championships in their separate brands is not lost on me either. And they were both killing it, like literally killing it. Yeah. So shout out to Trey Miguel. What a great match. What a great presentation. And if you're going to get beat by somebody, get beat by a legend like Chris Sabin.
Chris Sabin, of course, is legendary within Impact. He's been there, as they say, from the beginning. He was one of the guys who was instrumental in making the X Division as great and as iconic as it has been over the last 20 years or so.
Yeah.
But my question as well is this. Trey Miguel managed to reach 385 days, combined days, as the X Division champion. I think this was his second run as the champion. Now making him number 3 on the list under Chris Sabin and Austin Aries.
That's impressive.
That's impressive. But do you think he was not far at all? I can't remember how many days it was, but he was not far at all from reaching number 1 in combined days as X Division champion. Do you think that we have lost out in him losing to Chris Sabin Against All Odds? Do you think we have lost out on a chance to elevate Trey Miguel at this point? Should he have carried on to then eventually defeat that run of, or beat that record? Or is it kind of, okay, it makes sense. It's Chris Sabin. He's now got his own record. What do you say on that side?
It's tough. I think against all odds, as you look at the whole picture of it, was a night where they decided we're going to show our day one some love.
Yes.
You know, and I got a lot of respect for that. You know, considering this company is going into its 21st year, which is unreal when you think about all Impact has gone through and how they should have been gone, you know, easily 10 years ago.
15 years ago.
You know what I mean? Like, it should have been over. They have withstood a lot. And so I thought it was a great way to honor, and not just honor them because they've been there, but honor them because they can still go and they're still good. I think in terms of Trey Miguel, if he wins the title again, he gets to obviously tackle on that combined days thing. And if he has another great reign, he could, you know, add to that. I think they have some interesting things that they can do with him right now, because one of the questions is who challenges Sabin at this point, right? Do we get a rematch between those two at Slammiversary? Stands to make a lot of sense to me that we should, you know, and so I don't know where they go with him, but I do think that if they do have a continued war over this X Division Championship, it's a good thing. The problem right now is the world title picture, I think, is a bit crowded, you know, with Steve Macklin just losing, Nick Aldis now being the #1 contender. There's a lot of folks that I wouldn't want him to get lost in that just yet. But I do think there is a way to really solidify him as one of the greatest X Division champions of all time. I think commentary can help with that. I think additional matches, marquee matches for him can help with that, and perhaps even another shot at Chris Sabin.
I think it's a very strong possibility that we do see a rematch between Sabin and Miguel at Slammiversary. You know, the Motor City Machine Guns are there, and you know, on the same night, Alex Shelley went for you know, and won the Impact World Championship.
Right,
Motor City Machine Guns are on top right now. But I also know that obviously being older guys, they're not going to be there all the time and can't be there week in, week out and and all the rest of it. So their reigns might end up being short because, you know, you've got Trey Miguel on Chris Sabin's tail. You've now got Nick Aldis on Alex Shelley's tail. Nick Aldis isn't exactly, you know, just some new guy up and coming.
Right.
This is a former champion as well. An NWA champion, all the rest of it. So I think there is this possibility, or there's the hope on my side at least, that Trey Miguel can then secure the X Division Championship again, and for it to happen at Slammiversary, and then that third run then goes on. You know, he then reaches the record in terms of combined days as champion. It then adds to that run on its own as well. So that is a strong possibility, and I absolutely love it. We talk about Trey Miguel and Impact, and other people that we know within Impact that are champions is Chris Bay. Chris Bay is still running wild as the NXT tag team the Impact. I think I was just dreaming there.
Yes, that would be amazing, actually.
The Impact tag team champion alongside Ace Austin. Too many Austins in this world. I was going to say Austin
right?
Theory. I was going to say Austin Aries.
Steve Austin. Like, it's too much. Too much.
Alongside Ace Austin as part of the Bullet Club. The other thing that we know as well this month, Gerard, you pointed it out to me, and something that I kind of I realized but didn't really catch my eye, is that it is also Black Music Month as well.
Yes.
Across this month of June. The way I noticed was actually because of the last 2 weeks of Tiny Desk.
Yes. Oh my
gosh. The music show on YouTube, I believe it's on. Tiny Desk, where we saw Charlie Wilson absolutely kill it, and then Babyface somehow topped that with Avery Wilson. But this is a music show, so let me not go there. Avery Wilson is the greatest singer on the planet. But anyway,
he's incredible.
My word. So with that being said, and I mentioned Chris Bay on purpose, we wanted to make mention and talk about the influence of black music in wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that doesn't actually get talked about a lot, but there is so much to talk about. And we won't go into the whole stratosphere of it all and who's done this and all the rest of it. But let's be a little bit more specific, because one person that we know who is very well known and became very well known because of his music inside of the world of wrestling is Josiah Williams, best known for his wrestling flow takes on WWE guys, their entrance music and stuff like that. It then turned into AEW at one point as well. Adam Cole, the one we did with Adam Cole was Adam Cole was still in NXT at the time, but still, it was just phenomenal. Of course, then it brought Josiah Williams to NXT as a content creator, backstage interviewer, a presenter, all the rest of it, which is phenomenal. He's then also moved on from WWE and gone on to do more than enough of other people's entrance music, Sean Spears. And most recently, he does Trinity's newest entrance music.
Yeah.
With that being said, what have you seen in terms of music and black wrestling and how important it has been, especially in recent weeks and years, amongst the community of black wrestling fans?
I think it's huge. I think it's absolutely huge. You know, I don't know that wrestling fans necessarily talk about just how valuable wrestling theme songs are.
Right.
But, you know, really, pro wrestling is the space where theme songs really grew legs. You know, you didn't see it often in boxing. You didn't see it in the NBA or any of the other major athletic sports. But in pro wrestling, literally, you drop the first 2 seconds of a song and the crowd goes up. You know what I mean? And so, you know, from the days of Jim Johnston being the guy at WWE, doing all of those, and Jimmy Hart doing stuff in WCW, once we got, I think, to this NXT era, the doors opened wide in terms of who could be a part of this. But there weren't a lot of people that could find their way in. And I think that's what made Josiah Williams' Wrestling Flow so significant, was he was from the outside and made his way inside.
Right.
And was so good and so creative that, again, the wrestling community took part and they noticed. And it was obviously Undisputed Era who noticed him, ultimately led to him being signed and all kinds of other really cool things. Now he's become the go-to guy for theme songs, which is amazing when you think about that. You know, to hear his voice on Taya Valkyrie, you know, where obviously she's an Impact, and then over in AEW, and then what he's doing with Trinity, doing that one, which, I mean, think about it. The biggest free agent in the business goes to him.
Right.
You know what I mean? So his music ends up being everywhere, ends up being featured on Sherry last week. Like, it's crazy. So I think it's important, and it's so important that it's even highlighted during WrestleMania week by Wale Mania. You know, again, the presence of hip hop, the presence of black music creators being able to come together and celebrate their love for pro wrestling and their contributions to pro wrestling as well. You know, there's an album that doesn't get talked about much, but it probably should. And we could get into why perhaps it hasn't been. But last year, AEW released their first full project, you know, and it's called Who We Are. And it really brought together a lot of, you know, black music creators, hip hop creators to create theme songs for their African American members of the roster, which I thought was just amazing, legendary, very intentional kind of project with great music on it from a lot of folks, you know, from, you know, we mentioned Wrestling Flow, and you got King Drama, and, you know, some Christian hip hop artists, some other hip hop artists. Like, there's a lot of people represented in these spaces. And so to see the space now open, which is important, because there was a time where the music of pro wrestling seemed to represent rock and roll, country, or pop. you know. So to have Black music creators adding an urban edge to the artists that we're hearing from, or to the wrestlers that we're seeing, makes a massive difference, because what it says is our community is represented as well. Our music is valued as well. And we're also seeing, obviously, hip hop being represented much more. You know, when you think back to like day one last year for WWE, and they had Migos as one of the acts who was actually performing, right? Those kinds of moments are wildly significant. And all throughout the history of pro wrestling, you can see how we've been added to these spaces on a more regular basis. So yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, and to think as well, you know, we talk about Josiah Williams and Wrestle and Flow, and him doing theme songs for everyone, and you see then this mixture of representation, because you, as I said, you've got Sean Spears, Taya Valkyrie using hip hop as their entrance music, whereas before anyone using hip hop was Black.
Right.
Or the other comparison probably would have been some Boricuas from Puerto Rico, or the Usos, maybe, you know what I mean, stuff like that. Whereas now you're getting the wide range of wrestling stars of different races, all using hip hop. It's funny that you mention the way Migos did his thing as well at day one. He's not the only person in who has had time with the WWE. We see that when you were talking about Migos, straight away I thought of Bad Bunny.
Yes.
Now Bad Bunny, of course, is a Hispanic artist, but at the same time, obviously, it's hip hop heavy with a Hispanic twang twist. Obviously, that's his roots. That's where he's going to come from as well. And obviously, we see where Bad Bunny is with WWE. How important he is. He's had 2 massive matches. He's had a whole pay-per-view. Almost, if it wasn't called Backlash, it probably would have been called Bad Bunny.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, all of that. It was dedicated to him. So you just see how important the influence of hip hop has become and is becoming. And of course, I'd like to mention as well, we've talked about it before on this show, is the heavy influence of hip hop on AEW at the moment, with so many stars kind of making appearances, whether it be weekly, whether it be for a short show for someone's appearance, like we saw with Jade a few weeks back. Rick Ross has made a couple of appearances, stuff like that. We obviously we now also have Swerve doing his whole gimmick. You've got over on WWE as well. You've got Top Dollar and all the rest of those guys, Hit Row, doing their thing as well. But here's the other thing I would love to mention, and I don't know if people really notice. I just don't see it being talked about a lot. Are wrestlers who are actually involved heavily in their music.
Yes.
At the top of this discussion, I mentioned Chris Bay, and I mentioned Chris Bay on purpose because Chris Bay is one of those guys who has been doing this music thing for a very long time, and people don't really notice. He brought out something quite recently. Myron Reed is another one. Myron Reed you can find over at MLW and on the Indies quite often. Leo Rush is another one who decided to leave wrestling for a time to focus on his music. He's done that. And another person that probably some people may have forgotten about is Michael Tarver. Once of NXT, the first edition of NXT. He's also doing his thing on the music scene as a rapper. But more specifically as a Christian rapper.
Correct.
Now, me and you both are involved and have been involved in both the wrestling space, the Christian space.
Yes.
What do you make of Michael Tarver's, decision to be where he's at and to be doing what he's doing now, given where he's coming from, what he's about now? How much of his work have you seen and listened to?
Yeah, so he is part of a group now called God Over Money, which they are crushing it and killing it. Oh, there you go. Yeah, there it is. There it is. Perfect. So he's doing great things, and I think he is using obviously the WWE platform that he was once on to really help remind people of who he is in terms of getting his foot in the door. And then he's really, really skilled, which I think is what's so different about today's wrestler that is actually involved in music. Years ago, wrestlers who were involved in music it was done kind of as a gimmick, and they weren't necessarily skilled. Like the first person that comes to mind is the Honky Tonk Man, right? Like, which it is still a problem to me that he's the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of all time. Gunther, take care of that, please. Thank you.
Please.
But with that said, people weren't taken seriously as wrestlers who did music. They just weren't taken seriously. So now that we can look at all of the names that you mentioned who are all credible in the hip hop space. They actually have projects out that are not sponsored by their wrestling promotions.
Right.
That is a major move. I mean, we remember John Cena's project, or some may not, but John Cena had a project. It hit number 15 on the Billboard charts, which is a big deal. But a lot of that was on the strength of it's John Cena, not he's a great rapper, right? So we can now look, and now when Leo Rush can create his own theme song, and that's a thing. When Chris Bay can do it, Myron Reed, he's got his own projects out. It's a cool space to see, Shane Strickland, obviously, and all that Hit Row has done. And even the diss track that happened a couple of weeks ago from Top Dollar on AJ Styles, getting 1 million views in one day, right? It wasn't because he was a wrestler turned rapper.
Nope.
He was a rapper turned wrestler.
Correct.
You know what I mean? So those kinds of things add credibility to both spaces, right? For wrestlers who are able to rap and rap well and perform music well, you now take them seriously in both spaces, which I think is huge. And again, it's one of those things in sports that doesn't happen very well. There are, we remember Shaq, trying to be a rapper, right? And other athletes who have tried to hop into music and it didn't translate as well. So to see these wrestlers who are equally skilled in the music space is exciting on both sides of the coin. And I'm glad. And the funny part is seeing that they're skilled in those areas, they aren't ironically being taken advantage of in wrestling.
Right.
So that's the crazy part. You don't see diss tracks coming out on the show from Hit Row, or from Swerve, and we failed to even mention the Acclaimed as well.
Of course.
Who are killing it. Like it's just it's nuts, But again, Max Caster's got projects out under Platinum Max, so it's a different day. And I'm really glad, and I'm glad that we're actually able to take this specific time to highlight these wrestlers, because I don't know that fans necessarily know that these people can actually rap and be involved in music for real. That they have projects out that you can actually stream, and again, because it's not related to their wrestling persona, then, it doesn't always get promoted as part of, what they're packaged as. And I think that's actually a win, not a loss.
It's true. You mentioned the Acclaimed, and I was it came to my mind just before you mentioned them. That obviously, the fact that everyone loves the Acclaimed,
right,
is basically based off of Max Caster's freestyles before their matches. Of course, direct, strong hip hop influence. Well, it is hip hop.
Right.
Speaking of, diss tracks and battle raps, I'd love to mention this guy, someone that I met personally, brought him over here for one of the shows that I was a part of. Wasn't an artist, don't worry. Promoting and stuff like that is a guy who's a Christian battle rapper, but a massive wrestling fan, who is known as the Saga. He is phenomenal. If you don't know about the Saga, type in TH3 Saga, and you'll see he constantly. So it sounds crazy, a Christian battle rapper, yes, and he'll take on other non-Christian battle rappers, but not just use Christian, related words and verses, but heavily use wrestling references.
Yes.
His little crew, I don't know if he's still with them or whatever, but were called the Outsiders.
Yeah.
Obviously, homage to the NWO.
Absolutely.
So, we've got all of that as well. It's incredible to see and to know as well, going back to what some of the stuff you just said, Gerard, about wrestlers being first rappers, then wrestlers, or being able to put out their music on their own. It's incredible to know and see that we are seeing legitimately good artists.
Yes.
In the space of wrestling.
Yes.
Whereas, our only experience of this stuff up until about maybe 5 years ago was Kurt Angle battle rapping John Cena. or even Michael Cole trying to get involved in some way. I don't know why I brought that up, and I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, Well, and then even going
like
back to, some might not remember this during the New Generation era. Men on a Mission, right?
Men on a Mission, of course.
Yeah, like that was,
of course.
it was kind of like, oh wow, these guys are rappers. Oh wow, yeah, So it really is refreshing that, again, this isn't a character. This is who these guys are, and that makes a massive difference.
It makes an absolutely amazing amount of difference, and I think it's important for guys to know, the fans and whoever else to know about the wrestlers' other talents that they have. It's not just based on their wrestling, or even to know with some of them they can't only rely on wrestling, especially maybe some of them on the indies and stuff. They can't solely rely on wrestling to kind of get them, whether it be financially through life or even emotionally through life, mentally through life, stuff like that. Obviously, music being an avenue for emotion, to be able to, to put your emotions out there and share your story and all that kind of stuff. This is another way for these guys to do it. That's not just in the ring. So also, again, to make mention, guys like Chris Bay, Leo Rush, Myron Reed, Michael Tarver, the Saga, who does his thing as well. Max Caster, Platinum Max, Josiah Williams, Wrestle and Flow. There's another guy I wanted to mention. You probably don't even know who he is, but I know him from doing my obviously the stuff on my page, and I've come across this guy who is Norwegian. Sorry, a Danish wrestler. He's gonna kill me for saying that. Danish wrestler.
Okay.
But he actually, I got talking with him a few years back when I met him and stuff, and he actually lived in Birmingham, where I'm from as well, for a few months before moving over to Denmark, which is very weird. He's black, which is very weird. But he's also, a rapper, and he puts out a lot of stuff as well. He does a few freestyles and whatnot. And he's so good at what he does. Michael, and I've forgotten his last name. Don't kill me.
He's coming for you.
He's coming for me. But I'll put it up there, and I'll put it in the comments at the bottom or something.
Yes.
But another person to mention, just check out, what all of these guys are doing. Support them in any way and every way you can. Stream their stuff. Stream their stuff on Spotify, on SoundCloud, wherever you can find it. Let's not even forget to mention R-Truth.
Yeah, right.
Whoa.
Wow.
Whoa.
Wow.
R-Truth, Ron Killings, who has also put out his own stuff over time as well. There are still so many more to mention that we can't think of all of them. But, on that note, guys, don't forget to follow them all. You can also follow us here. You have been watching WrstlXtra on the WrestleManiac UK YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe and click the notification bell when this guy, he's not here, when Mex puts out all of his reactions and things to AEW and WWE and whatever else he feels needs to be talked about. Shout out to Mex as well. He had to dip off for family reasons and stuff, so I hope everything's all right over that side. I'm sure we'll get an update from him soon enough. Also follow this guy, This is Gerard Bonner. You can find him on everything on Bonafide. Also find him on the Faction Show, on Southern Honor Wrestling, on Battle Slam, on WWT Live, and then at the Nightmare Factory as well. And I think that's all of them. And I'm sure there's other stuff that he does that I don't know about yet.
Which I have to shout out Battle Slam if we're talking hip hop and wrestling as well.
Oh,
so,
of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Heavily based on Mex is here. Keep
there
going,
he is.
says.
Well, that's good. But very quickly to shout out Battle Slam, because again, now that we're at a space where we can have an entire promotion that puts together hip hop and pro wrestling, shows just how far that marriage has come. So shout out to Baron Black and all the folks over at Battle Slam.
And the other promotion I forgot to mention, I don't know how, is House of Glory as well in New York. Who are very heavily about a very similar thing. But, at one point, I don't know if it's still the case, but, Master P became the owner of HOG at one point. I know of so many guys in New York who are massive fans of that promotion and wrestling in general, and also massive fans of hip hop as well. So the combination of all three things coming together is just so beautiful when it's done right. And I believe Battle Slam HOG have definitely done that in a brilliant way. And I'm sure there are others that have done the same as well. And on the final note, you can follow me if you want to. If you're not, don't follow me. I'm joking. Follow me, please.
Follow this man.
Follow me, please. I'm begging you, please. At Black Wrestling Alliance on Instagram, BWA Dazzle on Twitter as well. Guys, this has been our time. We are here to wrap it up. Okay, I won't do that again.
I see what you did there.
This has been our time, but this has been WrestleXtra. See you later, guys.